Well, for our next presentation, we have Elissa Caligiuri, Solutions Enablement Manager from OnePlace Solutions, and James Fox, the CEO of OnePlace Solutions, who will be talking about how you can add greater information context for a more successful records and information management environment. Now, both Elissa and James will also be hanging around at the end of their presentation for the Q&A to answer any of your questions. So with that said, I'll now hand on over to Elissa to get started.
Thanks, Luke. In today's business landscape where the velocity of digital content creation is accelerating, it's important more than ever to facilitate a more intelligent, automated process for information governance and records compliance. And the digital workplace is the intersection of people, processes, and technology. So in today's session, we'll discuss the importance of people in context of the digital workplace, simplifying access to solutions, and streamlining the capture, classification, and access of content, enabling a successful digital workplace and in turn creating intelligent information governance, records, and compliance. We'll also look at the importance of adding context to this important information to help automate information governance, retention, and records management. And then we'll jump across and demonstrate how we can make this happen from where you work, the applications that you use every day, such as Microsoft Outlook. And finally, we'll discuss Microsoft 365 records and the more recent changes and where to keep up to date of what's coming. So a digital workplace is the interaction between people, processes, and technology. And with the increasing vast amounts of information being created on a daily basis, this means creating a more intuitive and intelligent way for information protection, governance, and records compliance. And this has never been more important. So people are at the center of the digital workplace and they must remain productive with enhanced collaboration capabilities and streamlined processes for both creating and consuming information, while also adhering to company policies, company processes around information protection, governance, and records. And we at OnePlace Solutions support enabling people in business to do more simply. So by putting people at the center, we can simplify the intersection of people, process, and technology to allow the business user to focus on what matters to them, which is a business solution, as opposed to needing to understand records management in too much detail. In practical terms, as we'll show in the demonstration, we achieve this by bringing solutions to where people work to streamline processes, minimize change, and enable greater engagement with business solutions, and to simplify the accurate capture, classification, and access of this content. So given the amount of digital content creation, we need a more intelligent ways to streamline information protection, information governance, and by this I mean retention policies, and where possible, more automated records compliance. So to achieve this, we need to implement system-driven processes and where possible, make it easy for people to add context to information that can be used for a more intelligent governance and records compliance. By providing more context to this important information, such as adding emails and or documents to a specific location in SharePoint, and then applying a content type or metadata to that item, this allows for a more automated and implicit retention labels to be set on this information. So this can be achieved in a few ways. For example, by setting a retention policy for all content saved to a document library, or by managing some of the more advanced capabilities of the Microsoft 365 records management solution. And this includes auto labels being based off metadata, using the power of the keyword query language search or KQL, or by using the sensitivity information type that's available. So for example, detecting if a tax file number or a passport number are applied and applying the appropriate information protection and governance piece to that piece of content. And finally, what's also available is trainable classifiers, which can use artificial intelligence to look for specific content to apply intelligent governance and records compliance. So in the demonstration, we will show how to simplify from Outlook the capturing of the sensitivity label applied to an email, and then promoting that value to a column in SharePoint, making it more visible and available to others. For those who may have been using AIP or Azure Information Protection labels, these are now commonly referred to as sensitivity labels. We'll also show saving emails and attachments to SharePoint locations, and that can be used for implicit retention policies, and the automatic capture of metadata such as email attributes and other metadata defined in SharePoint. We'll also demonstrate how to encourage a single instance of content in the digital workplace. So with that being said, over to you, James.
Thank you, Elissa. As part of the digital workplace strategy of connecting people, processes and technology, it's important to make it simple for people to capture, classify and access content from where they work. This promotes greater collaboration, improves productivity and helps ensure we're able to add context to information for better information protection, governance and records management. We all spend a lot of time in Microsoft Outlook, Office and similar applications is where we are most familiar and probably most productive. However, many of our business solutions are built on the Microsoft 365 platform, including Teams and SharePoint. So it's important we enable people in business to do more simply by connecting applications like Microsoft Outlook with your solutions that are built on Microsoft 365. Let's take a look at adding a SharePoint location. In an enterprise scenario, SharePoint and Microsoft Teams locations would be deployed automatically to one or more groups of users, but for today's demonstration, I've simply connected to a security trimmed location and added it as a favorite. Here you can see the location is now available on the left navigation of Microsoft Outlook. Let's now take the scenario where we'd like to save an email or an email attachment from Microsoft Outlook to SharePoint. The email may have a sensitivity label applied, and this needs to travel with the email when saved. We need to keep the process simple and familiar for the user, while intelligently capturing additional metadata to add context to the content. By a simple drag drop to the Outlook folder, the email is now in SharePoint. We can select the folder to show the SharePoint content that I or any of my colleagues may have saved. Here you will see we've not only added further context simply by definition of the location we've saved the content, but we have also automated the capture of email attributes. We've also applied relevant SharePoint column information, and in this case, associated the email to a Microsoft 365 SharePoint content type. You will also notice the email sensitivity has been captured, again adding further context for better information protection, governance and records management. For this location, you can see a retention label of contract has automatically been applied. This has been implicitly set based on the content being saved to this location. To achieve this, you simply associate a retention policy to the library in the settings. A user can also explicitly set a different retention policy where required for an individual item saved to SharePoint, providing greater flexibility to the user and the organization. Coming back to the importance of context, the location, content type, and other metadata can be used by the Microsoft 365 auto label capability, and this helps achieve more automated information governance. The auto label capability uses the power of keyword query language against the metadata to set retention labels. This helps remove the burden from the business user and allows the user to focus on their day-to-day work. Finally, it's important we minimize duplicate content across Microsoft 365. An example of helping prevent duplicate content is by way of having the hash code at the end of the file name, preventing the same email being saved to the same location multiple times. This wraps up the brief demonstration of enabling people in business to do more simply. Importantly, we are allowing people to remain productive, collaborate, and add context to information for more automated and intelligent information protection, governance, and records compliance. I'll hand back to you, Elissa.
Thanks, James. The key takeaway point from today's session would like to leave you with is that it's important to keep the business users in mind when it comes to information management and records compliance. This is critical in a digital workplace where we're bringing people, processes, and technology together. There's also been many recent initiatives from Microsoft to help with the ever-increasing digital content being created and how to best manage this information from a protection, governance, and records compliance perspective. So for example, the trainable classifiers, sensitivity types, and auto labels based on metadata to implicitly apply a label and help with protection and governance. Note, there are some licensing considerations, mainly between E3 and E5 licenses, and the capabilities available. And finally, I've provided a link below to the Microsoft 365 Records Management Roadmap from Microsoft and encourage you to go and take a look at the most recent developments and upcoming roadmap items. Thank you everyone for attending today's session, and please reach out by email if we can help with any further questions.
Well, thank you very much to Elissa and James for that presentation. Now, if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes left. So James and Elissa will both be here to answer any of your questions. Just click the Q&A tab in the top right-hand menu and pop your questions in there and they'll get back to you. So with that said, I'll turn my webcam off now while we run the Q&A.